like, no, I'm still human and I still get caught on the wheel of doom at times. But the recovery, the bounce back, my rebound is much faster and I can zoom out almost as if to see myself like, oh, hey, little rebel, how fancy seeing you here. What was that about? What do we got cooking in there? What's bugging you, you know? So
Hmm.
I always want to to come back and say, yes, I'm different. Yes, I'm changed. Yes, I'm way softer. But there's also just certain parts of you that are you.
Welcome back again to another episode of the Confident Mompreneur Podcast, where we talk to real women from around the globe about real life difficulties and triumphs in momhood, business, relationships, health, and more. I'm your host, Kyrie, ready to give you real actionable advice to help you become the best, most confident version of you in all areas of your life. Let's get into it. Well, welcome on today, Rianne. I am so excited to have you here.
Yay. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. You kind of feel nervous when you're in this seat, I guess, right?
I
Roles
know it's kind of
reversed.
interesting. We just flip-flopped from last time. So
It is. I didn't think I was going to feel like nerves, but I'm like, oh, this feels different. Okay. Hi.
it's
Hi,
always
nerves.
interesting when you go from being the interviewer to the interviewee.
Right? You kind of get used to being the interviewer. And then,
Hmm.
yeah, all of a sudden spotlight's on you and it's like, yee.
Yes. So for those of you who haven't gone and listened to our podcast, I went on her podcast, Ramble with Rianne, a few weeks ago now. And it was really great. So we had a really good discussion. And so I'm so excited to have her on and get to now put her in that spotlight and talk about her a little bit. So
Right?
for those who don't know you, do you want to just start us out by introducing yourself a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, all the things?
Yeah, totally. So I'm Rianne. It's like Diane. And I really wish that I had learned that when I was very young to explain my name because people are like, Rianne, Rainy. Meh." So it's Ryan, like Diane. It's so easy when you say that. Um, I am a mother of eight. I'm a stay-at-home mom with this side hustle of whatever Instagram is and healing and spirituality and trying to hold space for others, whatever that looks like. It's always morphing, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I really have a passion for just people not feeling alone, people feeling seen and heard and validated that, like, you're not too much. Your story isn't too much. You're all of that, just seen and heard. Anyway, I have been married for 20 years, which seems like a blip of a second and also like 8 lifetimes. I had children when I was 19, 20, and then I just never stopped. I've been having them from then till now. My baby is a year old. And so I'm raising teenagers, everything in between, and still changing diapers. So it's kind of wild.
That is
I
so wild.
Yeah, if you were to ask my kids, to like stack up or weights and balances on the over-unders of your mother, it would just be from A to Z because I've evolved as a mother. Like, you start out thinking you know what you're doing, or at least I did way back when, kind of more old-timey times, more like children are well behaved, more the seen but not heard to a degree. I definitely
Mm-hmm.
changed from that was definitely how it was when I was a kid. And then I feel like my husband and I loosened up a little bit. So not so much back in the day, but still a little bit. So if you compare my 18-year-old to say my 12-year-old, it's night and day. It was like
Mm-hmm.
my oldest didn't even say fart or know what the word was until he was probably like 8. And now my kids are like using 4-letter words. So you kind of, I don't know, loosen along the way, I guess. Like you don't sweat the small stuff, kind of more.
Mm-hmm.
So I've definitely evolved as a mother and a human, which, yeah, because of that, I've dove into so many different healing modalities and journeys. And I've tried this and I've tried that. And somewhere along the line, we left our religion. So that was huge. That's a huge morphing
Mm-hmm.
moment, as a human and a couple. Luckily, my husband and I were both on the same page there.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people kind of do it alone or one stays, one goes. Um, I'm glad that we are along the same lines because I don't know how that would work for me. But yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell where I come from. But what do you want me to elaborate on? What perks your interest?
Well, I mean, I think all of it perks my interest a little bit. It's so crazy. Um, you were having kids when you were still just a kid yourself,
Yeah.
and so I can imagine like how much you've changed as a human being and in the way that you parent from kid number one to now kid number eight. What was it like, having your kids grow up alongside you, and how have you maybe explained to your kids like the change in you, the change in your parenting style, all of those things are just like a natural evolution as you go through things?
I think how it began was um monkey see, monkey do. I'm just trying to be this good mommy and what you don't see a fight, you know, you don't see the screw up. So you're just showing your children the way that you do things. Like what's it called? Like it when you're in the army or whatever, like the blankets are folded like this and this is how a mom is and this is how a dad is and this is what marriage looks like and so I mean they were very sheltered, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Mhm.
And compared to now, I'm like, how are they going to formulate a healthy relationship with anybody ever and a conflict arises and then what they're used to seeing is that conflict, what does that mean? We don't have conflict. I never saw conflict in my home.
Mhm.
And now I'm like, hey guys, this is what a disagreement looks like. Like, let's talk about it. Let's work it out. Yeah, me and your dad don't agree on everything. Doesn't have to be that you're displaying like knockdown dragouts. Totally not what I mean. But in a healthy way, they can see that life is not just tiptoeing through the tulips, rainbows, butterflies, unicorns all the time. It's
Mhm.
ups and downs. So I think allowing my children to now kind of be involved in the flow of life versus like just completely sheltering them from it and hiding away any disgruntlements. I just feel like it's making them. I mean, I have 7 sons and 1 daughter. So, especially men in the world, I mean, I'm here for men healing and men being able to have tough conversations and just kind of change the dynamic of feelings just being swept under rug and we can't cry or we can't look at that or talk about that. I encourage my
Mhm.
sons, hey, if tears are happening, let's do it. Let them flow. Not like, hey, knock it off, get up, dust it off. You're all
Mhm.
right. Stop crying.
Yeah.
Where that used to be kind of more how we were, just come on, pick yourself up. Let's keep going.
Mhm.
We don't need to fuss and fight and cry about it. Um, my eyes have just been opened to life is duality, there's
Mhm.
both. There's the loving part and then there's the hard part. And I don't want my kids to grow up and not be in my home and realize life can get hard and be like, dude, mom, what,
You never
where are
prepared
you,
me for
yo?
this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's important.
I think that is so important. And I love that you talk about like letting them see the realness of like, fighting, but also the resolution of that and how to like get
Yes.
through those hard parts. Because I think that's part of the thing, if you only see one side or the other, like you can't understand how to actually get through something. And I think that's something that, our generation of parents is learning and becoming better at. And I hope, the
Yes.
next generation will be even better than us. But I'm sure it has a lot to do with like your personal healing journey, just like seeing how that has changed throughout your kids. So you got married very young, you had kids very young, and then you went through this gigantic like journey through what is spirituality, what is religion. What was that like for you? And you said your husband luckily like came along for that journey with you. So what was that like for both of you guys?
I think that, well, I got curious. First, I just got curious. I would see somebody doing something and I would place a judgment, like an automatic knee jerk reaction about a thing, like, oh, I come from the LDS Mormon religion, born, raised, same as my husband. So, um, very much now we're realizing what a bubble we grew up in. I mean, demographically, it's all we knew was the bubble of we didn't know what was outside of the bubble, literally like square mileage where we were raised. And so as I got older, I just started to knee jerk in judgment, literally. And I'm like looking, like blinking through my eyeballs, like sideways head turn, like, what? Like, I just started to realize all these judgments. I'm like, what am I even doing? Why do I care if this woman is like wearing her undergarments that we get issued within our religion? Like, why am I looking at her kneecaps to see if she has her undergarments on? Why am I judging somebody for even saying the word coffee? Or my kids say, I'm pretending to pour you coffee, mom, like they saw it on a show. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my child just said coffee and pretended to pour it. Um, and I started to look into why and where is this coming from? And then as I questioned, this is just mostly on my own solo journey as I'm just like every day taking note. Just the awareness started, and then I started taking
Mm-hmm.
note and asking more questions just to myself. And I then just kind of stroked up a conversation with my husband, like, have you ever thought about this or that? And then we kind of started talking about, why do we care if that lady's like shoulder is showing? What is this? And then we kind of together through these conversations realized that this is just generational ideals and standards that were placed on us. I mean, even you don't knowingly accept them, they're just there. They're just in you. It's just how you think, what you do, what you see, how you process it in your little computer processing system in your own brain. It's just in there, hardwired. So then we started to think about, do, does this feel good to us, to me? Do I really care if somebody is wearing their issued undergarments? Like, what does that have to do with me? That's just
Mm-hmm.
me placing a judgment on them, like a little tattletale almost, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, did you see? And then you can realize the conversations you're having with other people, with you and your spouse or you and your friends. And a lot of it starts to be like, oh, did you see that they quit going to church? Did you see that their kid doesn't go to church, but they do, but their kid left, but they're just all the time. That is
Mm-hmm.
literally like the circles you're running in, and those are the conversations you're having. And it's like, what the hell am I even doing? Like, who am I? I
Mm-hmm.
have 10 little fingers, pointing outside of myself. So I guess slowly by slowly, I just started to turn one finger around back at myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was like one finger per freaking year. Like, oh man, this
A
healing
slow
journey, this,
process.
oh, so slow. Two steps forward, something happens, and like say your kid gets really sick, right? And I would go, and I'm not saying this is everybody, but I'm saying I have heard many people say the same when I'm speaking like this, like your kid gets sick and you want to jump back into religion like, oh, my kid is sick because I'm getting punished by
Mhm.
God for not wearing my undergarments or for saying the F word 6 times yesterday or for insert religious something and the scare tactic and the
Mhm.
guilt and the shame and just the fact that you would think that I would have thought that there was a God out there somewhere that was punishing me by making my child sick and suffer for something like I had a coffee on Tuesday. Like
Sounds
there's a problem.
ridiculous now.
Yeah, yeah.
But at
Like
the
I'm
time,
seeing
it
a
was so
giant red flag.
real. Yeah.
So real, so palpable, so real. So it was
Mhm.
like you would feel like, oh, I'm released from the confines, and then you jump back in, and in that hard wiring, that system is really hard to unravel
Mhm.
and tackle. And so I think for my husband, it's easier for him to just be like, yeah, that's not right. Moving on. And for me, I'm like, yeah, oh my gosh, did I
Yeah,
really move on from that?
I think as women, it's part of like our perfectionist tendencies that we have,
Totally.
right? And so that, like you said, that is literally hardwired into you. It's in your genetics from, the generations above you that have gone through those things, that have believed those things for so long. And when you grow up in that environment, you know nothing else, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, terrifying to try and discover what's out there. It's terrifying to try and step away from it because you do wonder, like, am I going to be punished for this? There's a lot going on there. And I think it's so interesting that you talk about like thinking about the judgments that you were passing on others and like questioning that because that was a big part of it for me as well. It was like, I'm passing all these judgments on people and like why am I doing that? Like the other part
Hmm.
of this religion is being taught to, love and respect people. But I'm not seeing that love and respect here. And so I'm feeling very like torn. Um, so it was much easier for me to go, I don't really like the judgments that I'm passing on other people because of these, religious beliefs that I have. Maybe that's not true for everybody else. And I was like, okay, I can deal with that. But then when it came to me and realizing, like maybe I don't believe those things for myself, and
Hmm.
maybe like it's time for me to step away and maybe not have those judgments on myself about like drinking coffee. That was so much harder.
Totally. It's so much harder.
Yeah. So what was it like for you as you started doing like the small, like tippy toe movements away from what you had known your entire life? And like, what did it look like on the other side of it for you?
I think that it took definitely like years to I think I don't know, the first layer I think is huge, like being able to talk about coffee or drink a coffee with and like be seen, like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
here you see a coffee in my hand and I don't care. That took a long time to get there. I think once I got there, the layers have been easier to peel off for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
That first step's always the hardest though.
Yeah, I mean, that was years just dwindling in that weird limbo place. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it just, the biggest thing that arose really was that me in those places of judgment and like misery loves company conversations. And
Mm-hmm.
I know it was a me thing, and that is just where I was mentally. So I can't place all of that like within. oh, that's all, this church's problem. No, that was just part of my growth and my journey and where I was mentally too. Just kind of stuck on a hamster wheel. I think being postpartum and not knowing what that was, and you don't really talk about that, at least back in the day when I was first having kids. You just pick yourself up by your bootstraps and you just keep going and keep having kids and keep doing the thing. So I think fast forwarding all of that baggage, right? Okay, 10 years forward, it's still all there. So I found myself just in a place of just, why am I not happy? And and it was sticky and messy. And I think part of that was me wanting to remove myself from this religious scenario. Also, just being human and being like, I want something more. Something has to change. And so then it all just like went off like a bomb.
Mhm.
But it is timelined right around the same time
I
with
think it's all tied together.
it's all tied together. Yeah.
Because, I mean, I know religion is such a key aspect of like who you are as a core being and like
Yes.
your core values. And when you lose that, it's like, do I even know who I am anymore? Would I have done the same things that if maybe I had not been in this scenario? I know for me, like those were some of the big questions that I started asking myself. Even like, would I have gotten married so young? Would I have had
Right.
kids like I did? Uh, Did you feel yourself kind of like being pulled into that and like your entire life kind of crumbling around itself?
Oh, totally. And then you have all these kids, or at least I did, and then you're looking around like, but I have all these kids. So what to do now, you know?
Yeah.
So just the whole journey in and of itself, you like I said, you just two steps forward, four steps back, it's just this dance, but it does get better, but it's really hard at first. And so I don't want anybody to think that they begin this journey and everything is just going to get better and like this snap of a finger. It's like, no, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot to bite off. Sometimes you're like, man, I should have just kept my damn head in the sand. Whew, this is rough. Ignorance is bliss, right? But
Mhm.
when you have that aching to know yourself and to know that, get to know that computer system in your head. Like, do you want the old Apple computer from 1980s that is hardwired into all of us? We are born with it. Or are you ever going to upgrade the system? I mean, think about Apple computers, right? Like every couple years, you're severely outdated. I think of that as evolution in myself. I want to keep learning and growing and knowing myself. And the church just happened to be such a big part in what I thought was me. Then
Mhm.
when I separate myself from that like third party situation and like I want to know myself, and if I have a communion with a higher power or a God, and that really is the biggest aha moment I think that I had, is I thought that I needed that third party to bridge the gap between me and the divine, right?
Mhm.
Then I started to get to know myself and I'm like, I don't need a third party. Maybe there really is a higher power that is working for us. And then became my connection to the fact that I think there is a higher power, a divineness. It's not that I don't think that it looks like a man in a white robe with long hair anymore. I think it looks like whatever we need it to look like that speaks to our heart.
Yeah, just
Um,
some sort of a higher power. I always tell
yeah,
people that now the outdoors are my church because it's where I
totally.
feel most connected to myself, to higher power, higher being, whatever that looks like. But I always feel so much more connected there than I ever did in a church.
Yeah, same. Because that's fragments of the divine. I mean, that's where we're all connected. I believe that it's all like a tree is alive, just like we are alive, and there's a likeness there.
Mhm.
Um, which then you get into like this is so woo woo or whatever, but then I've dissected that with people too. And I'm like, literally, the most woo woo shit I've ever been a part of was in the temple of my church in a white clothing with a veil over top of my face in a prayer circle. So if that doesn't strike you as a woo to the woo zoo, I'm not sure.
That is so
So
true. Yeah, it is very interesting. There are so many like parts of specifically the LDS religion that are like very like, woo woo, but they then hate on all of the outside woo woo things,
I'm
right?
like, potato people. There's woo to the wizoo everywhere. What are we
You're
talking about here? Like,
right.
do we need to talk about yours?
all of
Do we need to
all
air
of the
your
different
laundry?
ceremonies
I
and this
mean,
like
signs,
things that they
symbols.
say. Yeah, sign
I'm like,
symbols.
so it's basically like people that deem themselves witches in the forest dancing with white clothes on in a circle under the moon. Same,
Hmm.
same, same, same.
Hmm.
I'm saying same, same.
Yes.
So I think there's power in some of this stuff, you know.
Hmm.
Uh, a circle, a prayer circle, a dancing under the moonlight with your sisters, you know, just being in joy and bliss and happiness in nature under the moon. That's beautiful. These
Hmm.
people do a prayer circle in their way. If the intent behind that is really a prayer circle to elevate humans, that's beautiful, right? But who's to point the fingers and say your way, my way is better than your way? Like I just to each his own at some point. If the church, whatever church someone is a part of, if it's bringing you joy and harmony, then I say go there. I'm not picketing on the side of a road against any of it unless children are being harmed or, you know, some
Hmm.
wild imminent danger or threat is happening. So if people find solace and happiness there, uh, I say more power to you. It's your journey. This is my journey. I just really want those 10 fingers to be pointing back at me, you know, because the
Hmm.
second I loose one out, it's not the frame of mind that I want to reside in. Does it happen? Yeah, I'm not just walking around here like a levitated being by any means, you know, like, hello, I'm human. But I do start to notice like,
Yeah.
geez, I got five fingers pointing outward. Like, let's take it back to me. What's happening here? I
Yeah.
think in a nutshell, that's the biggest gift that the journeying and the healing and the spirituality has given me is
Hmm.
knowing myself and how those operating systems tick and why.
Yeah.
Why? Awareness to self.
Well, and I think that's really the key in all of this is like learning that it's okay to change and having the awareness around maybe the things that we don't love about ourselves and being willing to take the hard steps
Yeah,
towards
it ain't
change because it's
pretty.
not easy. It's not pretty. No.
No, it's really hard. And like those people that we see out and about that really trigger us or drive us crazy, it's like you learn that mirror effect. I think that's always my greatest teacher is to look at the thing or the person and be like, what is this teaching me? What is the lesson
Mhm.
here? Because I am bugged and triggered. And I mean, 9 times out of 10, there's a big lesson to be learned. And it's really not about them, it's about me.
Yeah. I love the mirror effect. I think it's so true. The more I learned about it, I was like, oh my gosh, I see how I was like, really just insecure because this person was so
Yes.
confident. It made me feel less than. And that's not on her. That's on me to like work on my own stuff here.
Yes, it's those misery loves company conversations that just
Hmm.
really used to be where I dwelled and hung out. And then the misery just catches up to you. And I mean, at least you hope that you can just get get this smack across the face. Like you can be better than this. Like you don't have
Hmm.
to live in this woe is me. I'm a victim all the time. Um, you know, there's a different way to look at things. There's just a huge shift in perspective, like night and day for me. Night
Hmm.
and day.
So, as you've gone through this journey and you've really been focusing on your healing and redoing kind of those systems in your head, what have been some of the most important or most helpful like tools that you've learned along the way?
Well, one a huge pivotal old operating system for me was that like not crying or um being really tough with the tough exterior. That for me, I mean, in my childhood, that is the mechanism that I've really capitalized on to keep myself safe, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've learned is this tough exterior, what I thought was that was power, right? That brought me power and that kept me safe. It really was the opposite of that. I think being soft and tender is harder,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where the growth for me has happened. Is the power for me is taking a more loving approach than this bitchy, powerful vibe that I rode the coattails of for so long.
Mm-hmm.
It's like your heart is mush on the inside, like a teddy bear, you know, but on the outside you're like puffed up and like that doesn't bother me. And so that
Then
was the
you're crying
biggest
at home
lesson.
later.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Or you're just feeding the fury, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just feeding the fury and you're just angry and mad and annoyed. And I think when I started to allow myself to be softer and let that facade crumble, it was really hard because, you know, it's like crying and that's a weakness or whatever. And I don't believe that at all anymore. I believe that um, being tapped into your emotions is that way, in that way, is actually the most powerful thing that you can do. And so, steps to getting there were slowly allowing myself to just be softer. And that is by being aware. So something would happen and I would get mad or be bitchy or be bitey. And then I would walk away and kind of go backwards, walk that line backwards until
Mm-hmm.
I got to the root of what happened. How was I triggered? And then I just started to take notice of how I'm operating in the world. And then kind of rewalk the scenario had I been a little gentler or given that person a little bit more grace, how that could have been different. And then the next time I was triggered, you know, I would go into something and be a little less brash or a little less uh bitey or quick to react. You know, those reactions, those just knee jerk like
Mm-hmm.
fuck you, you know, like I
Mm-hmm.
started to give it a minute, give it a pause and then realized that I think this is where I'm at now is and why people's stories matter so much and why
Yeah.
I'm able to give somebody grace even if I'm treated poorly or, you know, bad or there's something there. Not that you have to just let yourself get ran over. That's totally not what I'm saying here, but you know, just the grace that you can give daily to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize that we all do have a story happening.
Yeah, we have no idea what's going on in other people's lives
Yeah.
90% of the time
Right.
because it is so hard to let people in, especially on those like really tough points in our life. I'm sure you've watched it because you have kids at that age. Have you watched Elemental?
Yes, I totally
How
have.
he talks about how our emotions are just there to tell us something that we need to
Messengers.
hear.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I think too many people just like brush off their emotions instead
Oh,
of like
yeah.
thinking about what that emotion is trying to tell them, what healing
Yes,
needs to come from it.
exactly. This is the awareness. This is how I say, it. Yes, the awareness is key. Awareness is key. Tell yourself that.
Mm-hmm.
Write it on a sticky note.
Yeah. I know for me, when I was coming out of like an abusive, toxic relationship, I had like, built all of these walls up
Yep.
and
And you don't even know
everything.
they're there, really. You just
Not
build them
really
subconsciously.
until like you're in a healthy relationship. And then I was like trying to build this healthy relationship with my partner now. And it was so hard because I would have
Hmm.
those like knee jerk reactions that you're talking about. And then I would
Yeah.
have to be like, wait, that has nothing to do with
Yeah. Why is
him.
that wall there? I just
Like,
ran into a wall. What the? Why is that
yeah,
there? Yeah.
it's like literally running into a brick wall, like face
Hmm.
first. I was like, that has nothing to do with him. That has everything to do with like my past and these walls that I built up.
It
So
kept
I
you
would
safe
do,
somewhere.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would do those steps back and be like, okay, well, and then I would explain to him, like, I'm sorry that I had this reaction. This is why it happened, but I'm going to try and work on it to be better next time. Just so you are aware, like, that is something
Yes.
that
That's
I'm having to work
beautiful.
through myself right now.
Yes. Right? Like it's not you, it's me. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a me program. So just
Mm-hmm.
hang on and we'll get it sorted. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful that you have somebody that is willing to hear you out and listen. And it's just that grace. That's what I'm saying. If we all dosed our daily life with a little more grace to others, and I'm saying that because shit, I need it. Please,
Please
please
give
give me
me
a
a
little
little
grace
bit.
here. Give me a little
Okay.
grace there, like sprinkling salt, man. Like, give me a little, yep, I'm gonna need a little grace there. Struggling. I just think, and it's not just a switch like, oh, the world is in perfect harmony now. No, but it just seems like it would be a little bit more cozy of a place. We're all
Yeah.
so on our own path and so behind our own closed doors. Like days of old, people lived in tribes and communed together all the time, all
Mm-hmm.
day. They were in community. And
Mm-hmm.
we just don't really work like that anymore. We're all behind our screens, behind our doors, and just a little bit more of that. I think by giving grace, it just knits a tighter community. I feel that feeling of like, hey, I got you. I know today
Mm-hmm.
sucked. It's all right. I forgive you. Move on.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, like vulnerability is actually strength. And I think by,
Yes.
like with animals, with dogs, right? They will roll over and show you their soft underbelly as like a sign of respect and a sign of like, I trust you.
Yes.
And we need to do more of that with each other because when we show that vulnerability, it creates these amazing connections with other people. I mean, through
Hmm.
you growing and sharing your story and being vulnerable and being more emotional, how many like amazing people have you connected with that way?
I mean, so many, right? Like it's that frequency thing where you get back what you put out. And so you kind of instead of those low vibes like misery loves company, everything sucks. Oh, it's Monday. You kind of just start to look like, okay, it's Monday. Like, maybe I'm tired, but let's see what looks good today. So even just that small shift in words, people.
Okay. Are we good now?
Got it. Yeah, good.
Okay. Perfect. Sorry, can you repeat what you were saying?
Yeah. What was I saying? Yes, the universe. I truly believe that you're getting back what you're putting out. So I have met so many people that probably would have never crossed my path if I hadn't allowed myself to be seen in a different way or to know myself in a different way. Like I don't have to keep operating on this callousness is power and I am rough around the edges and this is just the way that I am.
Mm-hmm.
That was blocking my potential and blocking me from knowing me on a different level, right? Because okay, Rianne, busted badassness, I'm so hard or whatever to a degree, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
then there's a totally different side of me there. And until I met her, I was only ever going to go so far. So
Hmm.
it's like a whole nother world opens up each level deeper you get to know yourself.
Yeah. You're literally leveling up with every like little bit of you that you really get to know and like know at a deep level, because once we know ourselves, like you said, we've got that awareness to be able to change the things that we don't like and grow the things that we do love about ourselves. And like, it's so cool to be able to have that awareness and growth and see other people, have that awareness and growth
Yeah,
and be able to use them as a tool to like help you reach that next level if you're feeling stuck. Like
totally. And
people
it's
are.
not like somebody's like, oh, so you've just get, ooh, hi. Hi, old operating system. Fancy seeing you here. You're still you, and you still, it's not like you're just, I don't know how they talk about like ascended masters and like, I'm just levitating through life now. Like, no, I'm still human and I still get caught on the wheel of doom at times. But the recovery, the bounce back, my rebound is much faster and I can zoom out almost as if to see myself like, oh, hey, little rebel, how fancy seeing you here. What was that about? What do we got cooking in there? What's bugging you? So
Hmm.
I always want to to come back and say, yes, I'm different. Yes, I'm changed. Yes, I'm way softer. But there's also just certain parts of you that are you. I mean, um, I don't know.
At your
There's,
core, you're still
yeah,
like
there's
the
the
same
duality.
person. Yeah.
Yeah, there's still like, there's your mystical side and your light side and your dark side. It's not all just ever gone. It's all there. It's all always there. It's just how much of you is operating on this higher self, you know?
Hmm. Yeah. It's definitely for me, as I was going through that, I realized like I still am the same person at my store, at my core. Like I have the same
Yeah.
values of like, being outside, being with family, doing those types of things. But
Yes.
there is so much more to me outside of that too. And it's so interesting to get to learn about myself, new things every day. I feel like I'm learning something new
Exactly.
about myself. And
I
with
think that's the
everything
point.
that I'm learning, I'm getting better and doing more and just
Mm-hmm.
becoming this higher version of myself, whatever that looks like at that day. And sometimes, it changes from day to day. One thing that I wanted one day is now not the same thing that I want the next. And that's
Mm-hmm.
okay.
It's just like you're allowing yourself to live without putting like the pot lid on, the lid to the
Mhm.
boiling water pot. It's like some people just the lid is on and it's when you take the lid off that all of you gets to steam around the room and like collect new thoughts and ideas and you're just not stifled. It's just an openness to flow and learn and say yes to that and no to that
Mhm.
and elevate into that and not that. There's no one way to do it. But I feel like when that lid is on so firmly and you're not even willing to hear an idea, or listen to someone's stories because you're just like, nope. I think
Doesn't
that's
fit the
stifling.
narrative in my head.
Yeah, I want to hear all the narratives. That's why I'm like, let's talk about it. I want to hear what's your idea. Maybe I will take a piece of your knowledge through your story, through your pain, through your happiness, and be like, I'm collecting that, rock for my collection because I love that. And I
Hmm.
think that's the point of life is to collect what we want and discard what we don't. We have that ability. I don't need the parameters of these four walls with the systems in place, with this lid on top of my head. I don't need that. That's not allowing me to expand or look introspectively. That's just telling me all the T's I need to cross and the I's that I need to dot. All I'm doing is looking to
Hmm.
cross the next T and dot the next I, and so on, so on. It's so harsh and rigid.
Mm-hmm.
There's no room to look over here and collect a rock.
Mm-hmm.
I guess
Well,
that's my
and no, I think that's such a good way to say it because you're right. You are just like crossing those T's and dotting those I's when you have this very rigid, like, and I
yeah,
think
that never felt good to me.
regardless of religion or anything else, I think, especially as women, we have a tendency to do that. We make a list for ourselves of like, when
Hmm.
I get
That
X, Y, and
checklist.
Z,
Yeah.
I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be fulfilled. And like you seemed, I'm sure, to everybody else on the outside, like you kind of had those T's crossed and those I's dotted with, the
Hmm.
marriage and the family. And, you were being a wonderful stay-at-home wife and doing those things. Like you had all of those things crossed, and yet you weren't feeling fulfilled. You weren't feeling like, you felt like something was missing there.
Truly. I mean, truly, I mean, a lot of times just miserable. Like, who am I and what am I doing? Crossing all
Mm-hmm.
these T's and dotting all these I's, but for who? For
Mm-hmm.
who? What, like, why am I doing this? This is not feeding my soul. This is not, who am I working for? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And then you take your journey back into your own hands, and then also, just as special as your own journey is to you, you can extend that view to others when they're doing something that you don't think they should be, and you're like, it's your journey, it's your
Mm-hmm.
journey, I'm over here on my journey. What do I know? I think
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the greatest things that I've learned, is really, like, I know nothing. I know
Yeah.
nothing. I'm a student. My children teach me. People that cross my path, I allow them to teach me. I'm like, I want to look at people. I heard this on a podcast years ago, and I feel like it was like, who was it? Ooh, I can't even remember. But the girl was like, I just want to meet people and fill in why I love them.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, if only we could just do that. That is
Mm-hmm.
amazing. So I'm not perfect at that, but I would love to gather something from everybody. It's
Mm-hmm.
fascinating to me.
How do you feel like, going on your own growth journey and learning to give yourself grace has impacted like your relationship with your husband as, he was changing kind of his mind around
Mhm.
things and going on his own growth journey and maybe changing?
I think because we got married so young,
Mm-hmm.
you just naturally become codependent, like
Yes.
my worth is based on what he thinks or whatever. And I think that now I'm almost 40, and I can like see my worth in my own lane with my own eyes without having to have his reassurance. Although that still feels really good when other people, exterior circumstances, especially the husband, can like notice you and tell you the nice things. But I don't think really until now, of really recently, because I was, had that, I'm powerful because I'm brash. I'm powerful because until I dropped that, I don't, I didn't realize I'm actually a people pleaser. So that's
Mm-hmm.
been big to learn. So I've been not knowing some very big pieces of myself, but I didn't really ever really love myself. My love came from my kids, or how good I was as a mom or a wife, or exterior, validation scenarios. And now I can really like close my eyes and be like, I kind of like her. Like, you're like a good human, and you can bless people's lives. Like, you can hold space for people and see them in a way that can wake them up to loving their self. I don't think you can
Mm-hmm.
really pass that on if you don't know how to love yourself. How could I be like, no, listen, Sandra, you can love you. She's looking at me like, that ain't credible, B. You don't love you. How you gonna be teaching me how to love me? I'm all about credibility. And I
Mm-hmm.
can't pass that on tell people that loving their self is possible if I don't love myself.
Mm, that is so powerful and it's so true. Speaking of allowing people to love themselves and, creating that space for them, do you want to tell us where we can find you, your podcast, and all the things that you have going on, all of the good stuff, so that we can kind of be there and follow along for, the stories that you get to share and those pieces that you get to kind of take and keep and grow?
Yeah, okay. So this is where the rebel in me likes to stick around because you learn how you have to feed the algorithm or show up this
Mm-hmm.
many times per day or whatever. And so then I'm like, screw that. Watch me not show up. So sometimes I just disappear for a long time and I'm not really super consistent, but I'm always around. I'm always around. So my podcast is Ramble with Rianne, and that is on Apple and Spotify. And I also have an Instagram, and my main Instagram is Seeking Sapphire. And that was a little passion project born years ago. And there was three of us women that were operating Seeking Sapphire. And then we kind of branched off to do our own things. And so I stayed, and it's always an evolution of Seeking Sapphire. I'm not sure what the little engine that could is going to become. But behind it is me. And I am an advocate for self healing, self growth. I have so many. I am a projector in human design. And so we collect knowledge. We just collect knowledge. So the amount of courses, and I mean, I'm certified in you name it, I'm probably certified in it. So I do all the things. But really, if somebody was to work one on one with me, it's never the same thing ever. It's always whatever special protocol that that person helps me tap into holding space for them. I love to hold space for people, safe space. So I create containers or space, and we just figure it out from there. So there's not really one specific thing all over the place because I can't be nailed down. If it's a box, I'm gonna run in the other direction. So
I like it. That's how I am
we'll
too.
figure it out
So
as we go. Yeah. Like,
that's why you and I get
did
along
someone
so
say
greatly.
box? Yeah. Who knows what it'll be tomorrow, right? I don't know.
Yep. Well, thank you for holding that space and, creating safe space for people to come and really be vulnerable and learn about themselves and go through that healing and growth journey. Because, like we said, it's not an easy one to go through. So, having somebody that has that credibility that they've been there, they've done that, is super important. So, just thank you for doing that, for being there. Creating that space for me to come and share my story on your podcast. So I appreciate you and everything that you do.
Yes, and ditto. Thanks for thinking of me and having me on. And like we said, it's the like-minded people that start crossing your path.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. That's just kind of the way it goes. You get on that wavelength and you just meet brilliant people. So it has been a pleasure meeting you and working with you. And I know we're not done. So
No,
keep
there'll
crossing
be more
paths.
in the future. Once
Absolutely.
once we're crossed, we're connected forever.
Yep. Soul peeps.
Yeah.
My soul people. Once I collect them, they stay.
Yeah.
That's one thing I know for sure. So you're on board.
Sweet. I'll take it. I'll be on board with you. I'm good with that.
Thank you so much for having
Thank
me.
you.
Seriously.
Hey guys, thanks for coming to this week's episode of The Confident Mompreneur. If you loved today's episode, let us know, share to your stories and tag us, send to your friends, give us a rating, all of the things, and make sure to check out our guests and follow them on all of the links that we listed above. If you're looking for me, you can always find me at The Confident Mompreneur, and you can also check it out www.theconfidentpost.com for a blog relating to today's episode. I am so happy you're here, and I hope to see you again next week.